And we welcome Jacob and Jared Johnson from Marble City Farms. It is Health Monday, and they were supposed to be here last week, but they weren't. And I blamed it on my producer, Chris, and Chris had the wrong date. So these guys are right on the money. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Second Monday of the month.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said. I don't know how Chris got confused on that.
That's right.
Anyway, you are one to me sometimes. You're a headache. You know that?
I knew that was
And we're talking about migraine headaches this morning, and that's not tongue-in-cheek. That's a very serious matter.
I will say you're not the first person to call me a headache. So that's
right. Not the first person in this room of three.
It's pretty universal. Migraine headaches can be debilitating. You know, this is a big deal for our patients. A lot of our patients suffer from these. A migraine, and just to differentiate, just to begin, to differentiate from other kind of headaches, migraines are throbbing headache pains, usually starting on and sometimes staying on one side of the head. The big thing about migraines is that they're also associated with nausea and vomiting. They're also a lot of times associated with extreme sensitivity to light and sometimes sound. And they can be bad enough that they can keep you from going to work. They can keep you from going to school. They can keep you from doing what you need to do until you can get over them. And sometimes they can last 2 to 3 days. So they're a big deal.
Jacob, I've said this before, and I'm sure you guys probably have, a lot of our viewers have. Man, I got a migraine headache today, and most of you don't even know what a migraine headache really is.
Most people don't really know. If you've had one, you know exactly what they are. You know, it's kind of like I used to tell people, if you're standing there at work and you're sniffling and sneezing a little bit and say, I got the flu, but you're standing there at work and going about, you don't really have the flu. Same thing with migraines. If you are going about your full daily activity and say, you know what, I think I got a migraine, I don't think you do. You know, there's no doubt when you have a migraine and it's debilitating and you're not going about your regular daily activities, you know, and just happen to have a headache with it. That's not a migraine.
You know, Jerry was talking about some of the symptoms and stuff, and you know, I didn't realize that you could get nauseous from a migraine.
Nausea is one of the major things. When we get a treatment, we'll talk about this, but a lot of times a person, as they get medicine to stop the migraine, they have to have the medicine for nausea to go along with it, because that's a big deal. And honestly, a lot of migraines end up in vomiting, and sometimes the vomiting actually ends the migraine for some people. So that's gross to talk about, but yeah, it's definitely a part of it.
What's some of the causes of a migraine headache?
Well, you know, we start with what we call risk factors. You know, who is likely to get a migraine? You know, how do I know if I'm kind of in that boat that, I need to be looking out for this? And there's 3 things that we look at there. The first one is family history. It's as simple as that. Is if I have a lot of family members who have migraines, chances are that's going to be something that I'm going to deal with at some point. So we look at family history to see if you're at risk for migraines. Second thing we look at is your age. And you're going to be so happy about this, Jimmy Dale. Like, you're going to be gleeful all day.
And
this is not one of those. We always talk about age, but this is not one of those that starts at 65 and up. For the most part, people start having migraines in adolescence, and then they actually, unfortunately, increase for the next handful of years into your 30s, and they kind of peak in your 30s, and then they start going down to where you don't have them anymore. And so the good news is it's not just for 65 and up, but it usually starts as a teenager, gets worse to your 30s. And then the last risk factor is gender. Women are 3 times more likely than men to suffer from migraines for any number of reasons, but those are the 3. It's family history, age, you know, adolescence through 30s, and female gender are the most common risk factors to know if you're going to have to deal with migraines.
Now, describe a typical migraine headache.
Well, that's interesting. And this is one of the things that helps you differentiate migraines from other types of headaches. Many times, migraine headaches start with what's called an aura, A-U-R-A. I'll never forget my first one in 8th grade. I was in algebra class. I mean, I remember the class and everything.
You're not kidding, are you?
No, I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually did math, believe it or not.
That's what gave you the headache.
That's exactly what's wrong with it.
I remember doing my work in class. My vision began to get blurry. I did not know what was happening. And next thing you know, I had a debilitating headache. And so for most people, the aura is related to vision changes. And so as you begin to see spots or your vision goes blurry, you know what's coming next is a really, really bad headache. So for most people, it starts with the aura. And then it leads to a headache that starts on one side of the head and it throbs. Sometimes it's pulsing. When I have one, sometimes you almost feel like there's a heartbeat in your head, right? And so, and then as that goes on, again, it can last 2 to 3 days. And alongside that, you have nausea many times we've already discussed, and then you have extreme sensitivity, most people, to light. And sometimes extreme sensitivity to sound. So what you have is, not only do you have to seek pain medication, you have to go somewhere and find a dark place and stay there and rest until the migraine is gone because of that sensitivity. And then when the migraine's finally over, you're completely wiped out. So you have people that you have to take time basically to recover from it if they're severe enough.
It's not in my notes.
Oh, here we go. I'm ready.
But can a person sense that a migraine headache is forthcoming?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll a couple of different ways to go with that. The answer is most often yes. Usually not on that first one. That first one, once you're in that aura, it's too late. Here you are. But like once you get used to it, there are feelings and triggers and things that people in themselves learn to spot because everybody's are a little different. But some of the common ones. All right, so first of all, and this is kind of sad, we don't really know what causes migraines. We know it's genetics of some sort, hence the family history we talked about. We know there's brain chemicals involved, neurotransmitters, serotonin and others that we kind of still study. We're trying to figure that out. But we do know in terms of cause that people have triggers. And that's kind of where that do we know what's coming thing comes in. The triggers that people experience that cause them to have their migraines if they're going to have them. In women, it's often hormonal changes. It's monthly cycle related things that they can spot one coming. All right, and the next is certain kinds of drinks. Unfortunately, that's alcohol and caffeine, folks, are big time triggers for migraines. Stress, we can tell you all about that. Stress is a huge factor in people that have migraines. And then sensory issues. We talked about when you're having a migraine, you struggle with lights and sounds and things. Well, those can also be triggers when you're not having one that you will have one. Extreme lights, extreme sounds, extreme smells in a lot of cases even trigger people to have a migraine. Sleep issues, weather and air pressure changes are big ones. People talk about, the air pressure dropped, so, now I'm starting to get a headache. Well, that actually is, that's true. That's a trigger for migraine. Certain medicines, certain food additives, all these things can trigger people to have migraines. And so you asked if you can tell one coming on. Well, people that had to eventually learn which of these are their triggers. Right. And wait a minute, okay, bright lights are hitting me. Okay, I know that if I don't do something, I'm going to have a migraine or something else in that list similar. But they'll learn what their triggers are and know when one might be coming on, absolutely.
Wow. Talking about migraine headaches with Jared and Jacob Johnson from Marble City Pharmacy on Help Monday. I watch a lot of old westerns because old people do that.
Sure.
And whether they're shot, whether they're cut, whether they're beaten, they always get them on a bed and they put a wet compress on their forehead. Now, how do you stop a migraine?
Because gunshot wounds are treated with a wet compress on your forehead.
That was a really good segue into how to treat a migraine, Jimmy Dale. I'd like to thank you for that.
Right.
Yeah. I will tell you this, just to make you feel a little bit better. A lot of times people use ice packs to at least help them get some relief. So that's the best I can do. That's the best I can do with that segue. You guys know this because you shop for over-the-counter medicines before. There are over-the-counter medicines that can relieve at least mild migraine pain. You think about your medicines like Excedrin migraine, which has your Tylenol, plus your aspirin, plus your caffeine. I'm having trouble speaking this morning. Sometimes people can get relief from regular old Tylenol or regular old ibuprofen. I've gotten to the point where I can get relief from mine with that, but most people cannot get relief from a true migraine from those over-the-counter medications. And so There's a family of medications, not to bore you with the details.
I'm already bored.
Yeah. There's a family of medications that work on a brain chemical called serotonin. Those medicines are your Imitrex and your Maxalt and those type of medicines. If you have migraines, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They've now moved on to looking at other kinds of brain chemicals, and some of the newer medicines look at those, like the Ubrelvy and some of the newer ones that you may have heard of. And so the medicines that most people have to have are all on prescription. And so there are medicines out there to stop them. Sometimes you have to go from one to the other, to the other, to the other to see which one is effective for you, because the same one doesn't work for every person.
Finally this morning, migraine headaches, how can we prevent them?
You know, that's the key, because if I'm a migraine sufferer, I don't want to know that I've got the right medicine in my bag or pocket or purse for when I get this debilitating headache to hope it goes away quickly. I don't want to have to deal with it, right? So prevention is what we want to shoot at. And there are medicines for it that, oddly enough, are most often medicines for a variety of completely separate issues that have nothing to do with headaches. The best, daily, I take this every day kind of preventatives for migraines often are old blood pressure medicines like propranolol, certain seizure medicines like Topamax or Depakote, certain antidepressants like amitriptyline. Those are all extremely common once a day to prevent migraine kind of medicines. And then newer things, people go get, I think 3 times a year, 4 times a year or so, people will go get on a schedule Botox injections in their head that help actually do a great deal to prevent migraines. And then along with what Jared was saying, these newer discovered neurotransmitters and brain chemicals, certain ones we can manipulate. There are shots you can take now. Small needle, once a month, take these shots that deal with that particular brain chemical that can prevent you from having migraines. All these things you want to keep up with as best you can if you're a migraine sufferer, because again, I'd much rather deal with this and preventing them than having to treat them and hope I've found the right combination of stuff that works, because I'm in misery. And then of course, to prevent them, you also do some non-medical things. You write down, you keep a headache diary, because I've got to figure out what my triggers are and what my reliefs are. And I've got to write all this down. This did work, this didn't work. I got one after I did this, I didn't get one after I did this. You've got to figure all that out for prevention itself, to just avoid your triggers.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys know Danny Corson. Danny is a former pastor at Odina Baptist Church for many, many years. And Danny is one of those individuals who suffers from migraine headaches. And he's told me some horrible stories.
Oh, sure.
About the pain and it shutting him down. And he could do nothing but just ride it out and hope it gets better. I mean, that's not a good life to live.
No, it's not, and that's why these people need to find, sometimes you have to work to find the right preventative for you. Like Jake said, you try this one, it doesn't work, this one doesn't work, this one doesn't work. You get frustrated, but honestly, you got to keep searching, because you want to stop them.
I appreciate both of you guys for coming this morning, but I wanted to share this with you today.
Oh, no.
And you're always fussing about older people, and the CDC had to get into it this weekend, and I did not like that.
The average life expectancy for people in Alabama is 75.2 years. Well, you got 1 or 2 years left.
Look at us men. What's the average for men?
Oh, here we go. Women is 78.
Oh, 72.
Man is 72.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know how I'll be in March?
About 85.
You made it 13 years past.
Never a dull moment with these guys, but I'm telling you, they can help you at Marble City Pharmacy. Gift shop, pharmaceutical needs. These guys are top notch. They're the top pharmacy in the area. It's Marble City Pharmacy. Jared and Jacob, thank you for watching Daybreak Live. We'll continue right after this.